Okay. Hi, so good morning, everyone. This is Tara King-Hagen, and today we have a very special guest with us. Brecia, welcome to Compassionate Arts. We're so excited to have you, and I would just like to introduce her by saying a few words about her so you know what it's all about. And then she's going to do her wellness check-in, and she's going to start her presentation. So Brecia Logan is a creativity cultivator, champion for women's voices, and a nationally recognized fiber artist. She is the author of The Spiral of Creativity, Mastering the Art of a Spirited Life. Did I get that right?
Yep.
That's excellent. I'm so excited. Her artwork has been exhibited nationally and is in the collections of museums and private collectors. She founded the International Women's Festival Pacific Northwest and the Pebble Rebel Award to recognize women who are making a positive impact in their communities. She is the founder of the Women's Woven Voices Project, which she's going to bring to us today, an international collaborative art project that promotes women's empowerment through writing, weaving, and sharing their stories. Welcome, Brecia.
Thank you. I am so delighted to be here. I feel like I've just sat down into a sister circle of just, I feel like our hearts are so connected. The passion and just every person, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm just going to check in with my self-care. I had to do a little dermatological self-care. So the good news is y'all are used to seeing people wear masks on their face. So please try not to be too distracted by the little Band-Aid on my nose. We're taking care of ourselves. So we'll just put that to the side. And I loved the conversation about self-care and about routines. And one of my morning routines is writing. Many of you may have heard of Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, and she has you write your pages. I have literally been doing that for about 25 years. Wow. So writing out in the morning has been a really strong practice for me. So I wanted to start out just asking y'all to think about what you're passionate about. And already, I mean, Sylvia, when you were talking, I could just feel your passion. And I know I'm in a passionate group. So we'll put that forward. What is it that you're passionate about in the world? Because Tony Cade Bambara has a great quote said, "The role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible." Right? The role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. And I take that on as my role is to engage people with texture and color and story and writing and ritual and any way that I can to include them in the compassion revolution, right? We're at this place in time, right? It's the Lionsgate, or it just finished the Lionsgate. That's another whole story. We'll have to talk about that afterwards. So I'm here. I'm so excited to share with you the Women's Woven Voices Project. It's an international collaborative art project. The goal is to empower people to feel their personal voice through self-reflection and writing, through the art of weaving, and through sharing their stories. And stories, nowadays, everybody is, you hear it everywhere, right? Share your stories, share your stories. Stories are so powerful, yeah. So we want people to find their authentic voice and to be able to share in many, many different ways. The mission of the project really is to promote creative action in the world, mutual respect, open communication, and compassion. And that's in the face of, very specifically, the inequity, abuse, and violence against women in the world. And that's how the project was conceived. And the goal is to create a tapestry And you can see the panels behind me, and I'm going to give you a little walk around of the bigger piece of the tapestry in a minute. But I thought when I started the project, I wanted to engage 1,000 people from around the world to weave their story, thinking that the self-reflection that when people take time to think about their strengths and what makes them whole and kind of center themselves in compassion, that this is a force for personal power. Would you agree? Yeah. Self-reflection, that's what we were, even self-care and self-reflection. And then because I'm a fiber artist, the idea of doing a weaving really seemed like a unique way to add a voice to all of the different movements. I mean, the Me Too movement was a quick tweet out, Me Too. And it was a really powerful way for people to say, I'm a part of that global story of wanting to apply compassion to these inequities and to the things that women are experiencing in the world. So this is kind of the slow thing. You've heard of slow food, right? Or slow fiber is a big thing. But yeah, so taking the time to reflect on your story. So I have to say that my goal was 1,000 story cloths, and I'm up to about 700. This whole project started a few years ago. And I planned to tell you all about how it works and the components of the project. But I changed my mind, and I just decided that what I'd love to do is I'd love to have the artwork speak first. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take you to the Carpinteria Art Center, where 11 of the panels of the tapestry, 11 out of the 26 panels, are on exhibit in the Robinson family studio in Carpinteria. And I'm going to give you a little walk around, and then I'll just be able to share with you that way. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to go to screen share, and I'm going to go to slideshow. And here we go. Now, is there a way to get rid of this little thing on the top? Someone help? Or is everybody okay? Can you see?
I can't see anything on the top.
Oh, okay, so you're good. All right, so here we go, Women's Woven Voices. The Carpinteria Art Center is a partner in the project. We gave away about 100 story kits. I mean, not story kits, yeah, loom kits. Something that looks like this. If you look at the screen, it just has some straws and string. And then community members participated in the project by weaving their story. So here you are walking into the room, and you can see here, there's about 300 plus stories already stitched into the tapestry. So this is the first panel that ever got stitched together, and I literally wove my story, got my daughters, my sisters, my aunts, and my friends to weave their stories. And this one includes Kira's. I did a little close-up. Kira's is the one with the mermaid on it.
Yeah.
And mine is the one with the figure of the fertile woman.
That's representing sea changes and peace. See that?
Yeah, exactly. And so this is how it all began. So from the time I had 5 stitched together, I started sharing it. I went to a conference on sex trafficking and shared, went to an art conference in Reno, Nevada, and people picked up kits there, and a group from Hawaii. This panel has 10 story cloths from some women in Hawaii, stitched their stories and then sent them to me, and we were sort of off. I had then 2 panels to share with the world, and those panels went back up to Washington to a women's conference, and then I began to do workshops and include people from all over. So this panel has a story cloth from Australia, and they started to come in from all over the United States. And this panel is the one from Carpinteria. I said I gave away 100 kits, and I got about 15 story cloths back, which is great. That we included the Girl Scouts and Girls Inc. And you'll be noticing that people embellish their stories with lots of different ways. I thought this was ingenious. These are just little washers that she wrote significant words on. And you can see people woven with yarn, some people woven with fabric, leather, string, ribbons, plastic, many, many different things. And there's no strict way there's no rules for weaving your story. So people are just asked to go with whatever they want. So some people do like a timeline. Like the one I like to talk about is a woman was sharing that she was born in Minnesota. So her story cloth starts with this fluffy white yarn for the snow. And then each bit of color represents something significant in her life. Some people follow the writing prompts and use color to signify that. Other people just go intuitively and just start adding in color. And as they're working, their story kind of unfolds inside, intuitively to themselves. They have new perspectives on things. This one was done at the workshop that Kira and I both shared with the refugee families from Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. And we spent a whole day doing a workshop, and the women wove and they dyed fabric to put in it, and they shared stories. And that was a really beautiful day. You might notice that there's a red fringe at the bottom of each panel. It's not on every piece. It's on 3 out of every 4, which was the World Health statistic that I encountered when I started the project of women who were experiencing some kind of abuse in the world. Personally, I don't believe that there's a single woman who's not affected by anyone being abused or experiencing violence in the world. But that's what the red fringe is as a conversation starter when people come to the exhibit. This project has been such a blessing to me. This little close up, you can see these little white tags. A woman participated in the project whose 22-year-old daughter had just passed away from cancer. And as a way of healing, she invited her friends to all weave their stories and include them in the tapestry. And many, many participants have used the word healing, transformative, and that taking the time to really think about the blessings in their life has really made a huge difference for them. This panel includes some textiles from Bulgaria. I sent a friend of mine a box of kits, and she sent me back the most interesting configuration of textiles, and I stitched them all into the tapestry. But you'll see that they're not quite the same story cloth strip that I've gotten from everyone else. So, but I include anything that anyone gives me. This is a local artist and my really good friend Jill, and she's pointing out her story cloth. And I've had that wonderful experience when we were at the summit up in Sacramento. People came into the room and said, "Oh, there's my story cloth," and we're able to share their stories. So, what else do I say? Oh, I stitch a sleeve on the top of each panel. I put the panels together in about 4 feet panel, 4 feet, because it's easy then to pop it up anywhere and display it. And it has been displayed in many, many different places. So this is my thank you for coming in and seeing the tapestry. And I will, there we go, come back to here. All right. I would like to open it up right now. I would like to hear what you think, what your questions are. I can go through my list of telling you more, but I'd like to open it up right now after having visited this tapestry.
That's amazing. Gosh. And I'm part of it. And I feel honored that I was part of the early part of it. And can I just talk a little bit about how I chose the colors?
Absolutely. Yes.
I felt like the top part of mine was dark, had a lot of browns and dark colors. And because I felt like the early part of my life was such a combination of being creative and then having my mother get cancer and die. We had 6 kids in Georgia and 6 girls. And so it was a hard time, and actually there was a Black woman named Bertha who actually I feel taught me love. And so at that point of my mother dying when I was 12, I started changing the color. And then I got married, I got divorced and had 2 kids and all that stuff. And then I found myself again. And art is how I found my voice again. And art is how I see the world now. Art meaning anything creative, making a cake that looks like a car for my daughter's, driver's license, things like that. So I tried to put as much of those kind of things into the story club, which is way too short. But anyway.
Thank you, Kira. That's great. Any other reactions? Anybody who hadn't seen it or hasn't participated? Tara, what do you think?
The only thing I could think was, I want to do that now.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful to me. And I wondered about, I could see myself weaving and crying about different areas of my life that I had been through, and then the beautiful areas that were coming up, and the feeling of loving and losing and giving birth and all those things that happened in my life. And all I could think was, I want to touch, I want to do. How is she doing that? Where is my fabric? I want to do it now.
That's great, Tara. So Brecia, I know you give kits, or you have kits for sale or some things. Can you, and Katie also wants to do it.
Right. No, so let me just address it right away. So Tara, our plan is to have y'all really participate in this. And I was hoping that you would be as drawn in as Tara says you are. I give away a free little loom kit. And this is some straws, some string, and some beads. There's a full website of www.womenswovenvoices.com. And in it, there's some little tutorial videos where I show you how to put this together, then how to weave, and then everything you need to know. My invitation, my reason for being here is to invite you all to include your story. And I'm coming back, is that right?
Right.
So the idea today would be that everyone would get a free, I will send them out free loom kit by going to my website, and where it says order kit, you would put in your name and just give me your address, because I have to mail them to you, because we're all over the state, right? So I have to mail it to you so that you can do it, right? So
should I put this?
I'll put in the chat, or if you would do, Tara.
Yeah, it's www. Which one is it?
Womenswovenvoices.com.
Got it. I'll put that in the chat.
And in the meantime, when we get off the call, I'll see that I do ask for a donation for shipping, and I'd be happy to waive that. But I'll have to go in and see if there's a way for you to push a button that says you don't have to. I usually just ask for like a $5 donation because of that.
Well, thank you so much, Brecia. I know Reverend Carolyn is on, and she has her hand raised.
Yeah. Okay, I would love to hear.
Well, I am just delighted. Just seeing the colors makes me smile. But I'm, in addition, I have a community. I'm actually in New Mexico. I'm not in California.
Oh, okay.
But we have our anniversary, and I was trying to think of something that we can do as community. And you gave me such a wonderful. This is what I'm going to invite people to do, to come together and weave our stories. We actually have done something like this last year, where we were celebrating Indigenous Month, and I invited people to tell their history of where their family came from. And it brought people together with such understanding of history. So this is a beautiful way that it can become part of our symbol of who we are. And my ministry is Inspirational Ministries. So I just say thank you. I'm delighted. I'll be sending you a request for quite a few, but also even a bigger one for International Day of Peace. I can see us doing that as a project with the youth. So thank you so much.
Okay, Reverend Carolyn, I am anointing you as a pebble pond. You and I are now partners. And honestly, that's just how this has worked. So the idea for this was conceived in the end of 2017, and it kind of started it up in 2018. And now there's people like you, Reverend Carolyn. I just mailed a box off yesterday to a woman. I don't even know how she heard of it. She's doing a women's veterans group up in Washington. And she said, we wanted to share our stories. And then I thought this is the best way, because then people have the opportunity to weave and then also just to participate and add their voices. So we're partners now. And I do have partners all over. I have partners in Canada, and people have reached out in New Zealand, and so that's how. So I might say that there's in what you just saw, there's story cloths from all over the United States, from Canada, Australia, Bulgaria, France, Germany, Northern Ireland, and then the ones we did with the refugee moms, I think they represent their home countries of Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. So really is turning into a very global project. So anybody else have anything to say? And then I'll share like.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how your connection to compassionate arts and the Charter for Compassion.
Oh, absolutely. All right. So since I just said, well, I'm partnering. So the Women's Woven Voices is a partner of the Charter for Compassion. And that door was opened by our Miss Kira there, who I didn't know anything about the Charter for Compassion until Kira introduced me to it. And but I have always been passionate about women's issues. And so I jumped in and I joined the women and girls sector as a partner. And then, I've given them programs. I donated 200 kits to go up to a United Religious Initiative conference in Toronto. And there's just been wonderful, wonderful collaborations. So I'm going to end up back at the Charter, Kira. So I'm going to go ahead and go on.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any other, either a question that would prompt what they want to know next, or?
I just wanted to have a quick comment. We were trying to, with our picnic, when it was going to be physical,
Yeah.
have Brecia actually do an art workshop for us. And I would like to request that when things are better and we can get up and going, that you actually come back and do a physical one for us, so that we can, as a compassionate team, do this as well. Because I think
I want that with all my heart, Tara.
We do.
With all my heart.
Okay, we'll make it happen.
All right, good. Well, I think maybe now would be a good time to just talk about, so where did this all come from, right? Tara mentioned in my introduction that I had been the producer of a women's or founder of a women's festival, which was a women's conference up in Vancouver, Washington. And this was back in 2016 and 2017. And in 2017, it was to celebrate the United Nations International Women's Day on March 8th. And I was following in the footsteps of an amazing woman here in Santa Barbara who had created these conferences for about 10 years. And she was asking women she was trying to seed them in different places. And so when I moved to Washington, I very, what do I want to say, humbly kind of fumbled my way. I had never done anything like that before, into helping a team of people put on this conference. In 2017, we asked 6 women who were local to the Pacific Northwest and who we thought were really shiny. They wrote a book or they were doing something in the community, and we just thought, we love you. You're so cool. Come and we'll give you 25 minutes to a half an hour to share your story. But please don't teach us anything. Don't do a PowerPoint. Please just tell us your story. We know how powerful that is. And so they did. So 6 women. And when the final speaker finished, she said, there's been a theme that has developed throughout the day that we can't ignore. And that was that 5 out of 6 of those women who talked about all of their passions and the things that they did had also included in their story that they had been sexually abused as part of their life journey. And that last speaker said, well, we can't ignore this. So there's 300 women in the room. She said, I'm just wondering, if you feel like it, how many people have been affected by some kind of sexual abuse? And at that moment, 300 women stood up. She didn't say, have have you been beaten or raped or something really horrible? Just how have you been affected by this in any way? Anyways, as we're all standing up, my heart was just boom. As an artist, I knew that I really wanted to do something that was big, that promotes compassion, that promotes mutual respect, that promotes communication and connection and creativity with each other as what I want in the world, right? So that's how the project was born. I was just so impacted by those stories and by the fact that there was that this is even such a thing now, so then the more I started researching and reading, and after that, I'll tell you, I talked to some women, and here's the thing. Women who I'd known for a really long time, when I shared that with them, said, I was raped in college and I never told anyone. Other women said to me, I don't know anyone who's ever been sexually abused in any way. And those two things really made me think, wow, okay, I want to create a situation where people can safely share their stories with each other. There's, not necessarily just all the challenges or abuse things, but just share who they are and create and foster a culture of self-knowledge and of support and of nurturing women all over the world. So I had been a fiber artist, and I had been working with kids in the schools for years. And one of the projects that we always did was we did weaving on these little straws, these little soda straws. And we did lots of different things with them. And we had done a couple nice community outreach things. And with them, we stitched them together and made placemats and auctioned them off for the food bank. And, so this was something I was very familiar with. And I thought to myself, it doesn't have to be complicated. You just start with what it is. I had done this for 10, 15 years with kids. So I knew anybody could do it. And I was like, all right, we'll do this. Very simple kind of weaving. I know that it's something that, since I'm self-supporting the project, that I can afford to share with people, and I know that anybody can do it. And then it was born. So I started the website, and then, just as it has, I mentioned I've taken it to universities, I've taken it to schools, I've shared it with a program that it was designed in San Diego for girls who are at risk of sex trafficking, and they wove their stories. I went to the Veterans Museum and worked with women veterans. I went to women's groups of all kinds, Girl Scouts, and not only just women, men too. So the latest project or partnership that I've had is with senior living facilities. And there's 10 facilities right now. These have never been seen before. These I just finished stitching together. About 400 plus people have woven their story, who are either living in assisted care or memory care, or some in independent living communities, and their families and their caregivers. And they've all woven their stories. And we launched it on March 8th of this year in Zoom calls on International Women's Day. And then since then, they've been having weekly calls where they can share their stories. So it's beyond my imagination. So when I did set the goal, I thought 1,000 story cloths, that just seemed huge. And now we're inching up to that. We're not that far away. And my other goal was that the tapestry would be shown at the United Nations Commission on the Status for Women and Girls. I just had always dreamed of going there. And I thought this would be a really fabulous place, to have that, where, I think it's like 30,000 women from around the globe, or maybe even more, attend those commissions in New York every year. So I had set that goal. I had no idea how that could ever happen. And I'm happy to say that this March, because of the pandemic, the entire Commission on the Status for Women and Girls was online. And the NGO portion of the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls events had an exhibit hall, and I was able to set the tapestry up in my tiny little bungalow living room. And for a week, had interactive Zoom calls with people from all over the world sharing the project.
Wow, that's
Amazing.
great.
So I could not be more thrilled. I just want to kind of circle back to just share one story, because of course, I recently shared the tapestry with a group, and someone said, well, what's the key? How do you know what the stories are?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
And you don't. What you see is this collective weaving of color and texture, and you don't know what those individual stories are, but you know that by looking at this artwork that our stories are connected. Our stories are impactful, right? So I like to think of the art as having a story of its own, speaking of a story of its own. But I'm going to share that one of the first participants was a woman who was 85. She had been in an abusive relationship at one point in her life, and I invited her to participate. She started weaving, and when she finished, she said, as I was weaving, I used to think of like my life as good and bad. And she said, I kind of started reframing that as ups and downs and ins and outs. And I realized I'd faced some real challenges in my life. And she said, when I finished that weaving, I thought to myself, I'm a strong woman. And she said, Brecia, I have never said that before.
Wow.
So at 85, I can only say that I'm humbly delighted that was impactful for her. And there's really those 2 points of impact then in the project. We have when you personally participate, my goal is that you will have a whole person experience. If you do the writing, which not everybody does do the writing, I have writing prompts that you can download from the website. And, there's questions like, the first question is, what are some of the greatest achievement and successes or creations in your life? And that's what I want people to think about. And then as far as challenges go, what were your great challenges, and what and who supported you through your challenges? And what personal strengths did you bring to those challenges? So this is the kind of self-reflection that I believe helps people tap into their personal courage. So there's that impact. And then there's just the impact of all of the now thousands and thousands of people who are viewing the tapestry, having conversations, finding what the mission is. I always ask people, well, what is it that you can do to bring more compassion to the world and to bring an end to abuse? Each person, each person has to be asked, what can you do? What's your role? And I do want to circle back now to the Charter for Compassion that Kara asked about earlier, because this year the women and girls sector launched an initiative called a Partnership for a Safe and Sacred Now. This is our response and our contribution to the many, 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 many organizations who are addressing the United Nations Sustainable Goals for equality for women and to address violence against women. And we just chose to not use the words of what we don't want. We chose to use the words of what we do want. So we do not want domination and abuse. We want partnership. We want partnership between men and women. We want partnership between women and women. We want partnership between people and the planet, because partnership is how people come together and collaborate and create. It's a partnership for a safe, because safety is the basis of all, that's our first human right? Safety. And we want every human being to be respected as the sacred being that they are. And when do we want it? We want it now. So that has been happening all year. We've had webinars and conversations and programs around that. We have one coming up in September on the subject of safety. We're just inviting people. Let's talk about this. What does safety feel like? What does safety look like? What do we need to shift so that more people feel safe? Yeah, so I think now I would also like to hear now from you, any other questions or any other comments or thoughts before I kind of come to a.
I would like to see this at high schools and colleges.
Mm,
I was raped twice in Atlanta in my 20s, and
mhm,
I think I was just naive. You
mhm,
know? I just trusted people, and Felicia used to tell me I still trust people too much, but you know, maybe not in that way. But I worry about my granddaughters, who I don't think have had very much conversation about how do you protect yourself, and how do you watch out for yourself, and you know, and those kind of things. And I think this art, that's one of the roles of this beautiful art, is that it opens that conversation
mhm,
in
yeah.
a way that's accessible. So sometimes you can ask somebody a direct question and they can't answer it, but if you use the arts to tell the stories like you're doing, I think it does help really open up those questions and answers and just connections, you know.
That segues right into what I was thinking of asking, which is, do I have to put things into words, or can I hide behind the fabric and not say anything?
Well, I would invite you to sort of reframe that and say that the writing is an opportunity. I mentioned earlier that I've been journaling for 25 years and I'm a word person. So that really serves me. So the components, the writing, the weaving, and the sharing, they're all optional. The writing is really for you, and I give people an opportunity to submit whatever they want to write. I have been collecting those stories, and I ask people if I have permission to share. And some people will actually submit a story to me and say, no. And I feel like I've just given them a safe space to put it on paper and put it out into the world. And now it's just safe with me. And I would say that probably only about 25% of the people have written anything. Most of the people are really attracted to the weaving part. It's perfectly fine. So you don't have to write. If you give me your weaving to put into the tapestry, that's sharing your story. And if you want to go beyond that, you are contributing to the conversation and the power of promoting compassion through the art of this. And many, many, many people, in the very beginning, people, I think, I don't know how you reacted when I started talking about, the women being sexually abused. It's a hard topic, and I always lead with how much I want to promote compassion. But there's a reason why I do this artwork, because there are women in the world who are suffering in a way, and conversations just have to continue, and creative action has to continue. So what I wanted to say is that this just is exactly what Kara said. This is another way, a different way for people to add their energy to that. And Sylvia, that was just such a great question.
Can I add something real quick?
Yes, please.
Well, years ago, I got involved in an organization here in Monterey called the National Coalition Building Institute. And their whole thing is international. And their whole thing is about bringing communities and people together to face to talk to each other. Mm-hmm. And to work through the real difficult challenges of racism and all the isms. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they have a list of their, what do you call them? What their, not their goals, but what their ideology is. And one of them, when I got to it, I just stopped, because I've been a storyteller all of my life. And the one that I dropped my jaw on was stories change attitudes. And what they did, which was really powerful to me, and why I did a video, and Kara was involved in video series of students with disabilities that all have stories about their disability. And the universities of CSUs of California were all trying to make the campuses more accessible and to the disabled students. And nobody really understood what accessible meant. It wasn't mean available. It meant they were able to use the bathroom or something like that. And so I decided to make a series of short video vignettes of these students, and I called them, and I called the students in to share their stories with me. And then I went around Kira too helped me, taking videos of these students' lives and what they were doing with them. And Stories Change Attitudes is, for NCBI, is about bringing people face to face, not in a tapestry so much, but it's sort of another way of getting to the stories, because they demonstrate how if you share your story with me and I share my story, if they're different, there's a different kind of understanding that happens of the story, the actual story. And so demonstrating in an art is yet another way of the importance of stories and being heard, or being able to speak, or being able to work through our differences. There's so much happens from storytelling to telling our own stories, which brings up a lot of stuff for everybody to get into that place and to share that openly. So I just love what you're doing, Rumi, my old roommate. I love what you're doing and how far it's gone, and it's a global thing. Just accept it and let it happen, because the more we talk about stories, the more we'll learn from each other. And I don't know if you do this when you have people show their work or their weavings, but if they share part of their stories, that'd probably be even more valuable. Or if you do it already, you probably know that.
Can I make a suggestion here? Because one of the things when Fran and I did, for 20 years, I did social justice exhibitions and books, traveled nationally on issues. When the Battle Break was on drug and alcohol use during pregnancy and its connection to abuse, childhood abuse, and the whole cycle. And it was 1 out of 8 women in that were abused, statistically that was coming up. So what we did so that people could tell their stories was I would take photographs of the backs of them. We changed their names. We either let them choose a name or we chose a name. And so we kept their privacy, but their stories could still be told. And as a journalism, my undergraduate degree was in journalism, and I, worked at PBS. Most of you know that. I do feel that stories are, like Jean was saying, stories do change attitude, but sometimes a story about abuse, it feels too personal.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I didn't share that when I first was talking about my weaving either, and but I do feel safe with all of you. But I could see if it was on a in a public place, I might not want my full name, or what I mean, or something like that. Do you, when you do the stories, do you can you do their stories without their names? You don't really have their names, do you?
Yes, actually, I do have names. I mean, a lot of people will send their story cloth in, and I don't even know, I don't know their name at all or their story. But some people do submit their stories. And what I do is, whenever I'm in workshops, we just create a very safe and sacred space, because that is the most important thing to me. The most important thing to me is that the person who comes into the workshop, if she feels safe to share within that group, the goal is for her to feel her own personal power, to feel her own strengths, and to walk away because now she's a pebble in the pond. And so, a couple of people have asked, would you like to do a video? I did have a goal at once to write a book to share some of the stories. But I'm finding that, for example, with my women veterans, we met 2 weeks, two times, 2 weeks consecutively. And they were so into this project, and they wove and wove and wove. And their weavings are some of the most bright and colorful weavings. And although, I just opened it up for conversation, I'm not a therapist, it was clear that each one of the women in the room, there was 10 women, had really had stories of abuse. And their goal in weaving was they wanted to weave their joy and their power and their children and their future and their families. And for them, they just embraced it so totally as a way to just say, this is my story. This is my story. I'm a mom, I'm a beautiful woman, I'm a survivor, or whatever. And so I have to say that I have given people opportunities for sharing, and in Sacred Circle, we've shared, but it's perfectly okay with me if people see the tapestry as an artwork and they don't know any of those stories. I want them to be impacted by the fact that, look at all these people weaving their stories, connected together, addressing more compassion in the world. That's kind of what
Can I just clarify one thing is that
yes.
NCBI that I was referring to, they use stories change attitudes because they take people who have conflict. One was sex education, and one woman didn't want there to be sex education, or they wanted abstinency, or so they get those two people together and they share why they feel that way.
I think that's
so it's more about attitudes than it is about sharing a personal thing. But the point I was making was that if you know somebody else's story, it changes your attitudes. If it's a mutual kind of story, like how you feel about racism or childhood sexuality or whatever, the controversial issues, it was around controversial issues, then it really makes a difference in that setting, not so much in a personal story, because I don't know that I'd get up and tell my personal stories I wouldn't do that to just anybody.
Well, kind of back to Sylvia's comment, this project gives people an opportunity to do self-reflection and share their stories, and nobody has to really know what that story is.
What I was
going
to
experience. It's art, through art. It's the language of art, and so the experience for them of feeling empowered by, I love what you said, Tara. I mean, so many people have said to me, I cried. I was weaving, and it was so rhythmic and so meditative, and then all these ideas came up and all these emotions came up, and I felt like it was cleansing, and I felt like it was healing. And I love that you intuited that right from the very beginning. I'd like to just make some concluding remarks, and then I think it's probably time to see if there's anybody else.
I wanted to say something if I could.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Just that I really appreciate that you're doing it in such a way that people can enter without self-identifying as having been abused, and like you say, have the stories be the sort of the joy and all that. And I was thinking right away, it's like this fits in. As an art historian, I'm like, okay, this fits in with a lot of different things that people have done over the years. And I've worked my own artwork on women's stories, but the arpeggiatas that the women in Chile did, and in terms of fabric, telling stories. But I just wanted to share, as you started talking about this contradiction of how explicit do you make the stories when you're sharing this. I was invited to the art therapist conference, and as a visual artist and as a curator, and I had been doing this exhibit called Art and Healing, and the art therapists were just so upset at me that I was labeling the artists and their names. And I said, well, this is the crossover between art as healing, as visual art that visual artists and other artists can really do as an art form, and art therapy, which has a psychologist. And yet someone in the audience came up and said, well, the work they were doing, the step between making it the art in a therapy in a sacred setting like you're talking about, the step that really helped the healing for the people for the women was to have it be exhibited. So it wasn't just something that they had to continue to hide. It was exhibited, and even if you don't make it explicit, this is, because you can't really read those, although it makes me think of the Guatemalan cloths where apparently you can't, there's a language behind those weavings. But so there is a power, whether you name the person, they know it's out there in the world. And I think that's what makes the art in the art context, rather than just being left in the therapeutic context, really powerful.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good. I just had the last few comments to share are something that I've found on the art sector page at the Charter for Compassion. And I'll be honest, I don't know who wrote this, but whoever it was, I love you. It's just so great. But I thought it was just kind of sums up. And this is just what everyone has been saying, all morning long. The creators of art and those who experience the art in seeing, hearing, thinking, and doing participate in a collaboration. And it connects us to other human beings at a very profound level. We learn of the pain, the dreams, the perceptions of people who live in distant parts of the globe and people who have their own unique languages, customs, religious beliefs, and social values. And that knowledge ignites understanding and empathy, a realization of the common humanity that we share. It's that image of our interconnection with all beings who share our beautiful planet that moves us towards compassionate action. So I think I will just complete there. I am so blessed by having been here and spending time with you all. Thank you. And also, Tara, if I'm not sure if there's more time for questions or not, but it seems like we're poised now to do this, to do the project together, right?
Yes, we're definitely wanting to do different things with you, especially physically. And I just wanted to comment, one last comment that really impacted me was when you said 300 women stood up. I was so close to tears, and I was trying not to cry because it's just absolutely it's like a therapy as well as everything else in art, to be able to acknowledge what you've been through and give it a voice in that way and with everybody else, so that you're not alone when you stand up. And that was just beautiful. And I thank you for that. And I thank you so much for having been here with us. It has been such an emotional journey today, and can't wait to start weaving my own piece and writing the journal, which I will do as well.
All right, so we just need to make it very clear that I can't send you a loom kit unless you order one, unless you give me your address. There's, the other way, I think, Tara, did you say that everybody could just put their address in the chat box right now?
No, I think the best way to do it is to go through your website, because that's a clean way to do it, and we don't have to get involved.
I'd like to suggest, if you do that, to put Compassionate Arts. And is it possible, how you had the veterans as a group, is it possible that Compassionate Arts could, because that way we could promote it as a compassion, Compassionate Arts participants.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I was just saying, I think I already did, but then I have all my partners listed here, and I have Charter for Compassion, but I will definitely put Compassionate Arts as a partner.
Thank you.
We're in it together now.
And it was really great because, Reverend Carolyn is in New Mexico. She's one of our longest supporters, and she's on the board now with the Foundation for Peaceful Communities, which is our nonprofit mother now, with Elaine Whitefeather, which we love, and also, so we're talking about going to New Mexico to do a retreat, and then having some retreats here in California in the spring. So that might be another possibility to do it during that retreat. That'd be kind of cool.
This is exactly, it's the pebble in the pond. I mean, I reach out to people, and then I just hope that they were like, oh my gosh. I mean, University Women is doing it. The Rotary Club is doing it. The Girl Scouts are doing it. The
I
university.
need to clone you.
That's the thing, is that I just need people to, to just say, hey, I have a group of women I would like to do this with.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much, Brecia. I mean, really, ever since I met you, I remember the first day going, wow, she is amazing. Nadja, this mutual friend, tried to get us to meet, and how time goes, right? And it's like, finally we meet, and it was like, oh, sister, it's wonderful when you have that, because there are a lot of artists that don't understand, or don't, or not, maybe they're not ready, or they don't see how they fit in. To me, art is an incredible, it's got an incredible possibility of changing the world. And a lot of artists, it doesn't mean you can't do your beautiful landscapes or your flower paintings or whatever, but it also means that beauty and compassion and love connect us through the arts in a way, performance art and music too, in a way that nothing else on this planet does. And Reverend Carolyn's has a service every Sunday. I'm plugging you, Reverend Carolyn, on Inspirational Ministries, every Sunday at 9, and she focuses quite often on that whole creativity and how important it is. And so I just want to make a plug there for her if anybody's interested in.
Maybe we could put it in the chat, the link.
Yeah, Reverend Carolyn, is that possible?
I always say that our creativity really is our spiritual superpower, because
I love that.
human beings, we seriously have the ability to imagine something that doesn't exist and then take the action to bring it into being. And that's our divine. That is the divine, right? That's the creative power, that's source, right, in us. I mean, it's I could go on and on and on. But I did notice that somebody popped in that we didn't get to hear from. And I was just wondering, it looks like a friend that we met at the summit.
Who is that? Chunchin?
Chunchin, yeah.
Chunchin.
Yeah, I thought I should go to China, like even last year or this year, to get group of Chinese friends to this sector. Because I know, in China, a lot of women, they don't even want to have a young girl like in the past few years. Like, there's still a lot of burden on that, So I thought I should do that. But then COVID hit last year. I can't go this year. I keep looking how easy to go to China. It's just very difficult. Mm-hmm. It's so hard to get visa. That's number one. I saw how the people, sometimes they have family, a member maybe is in a urgent medical need. It will take them a few months to navigate all the visa, all the politics right now, the US-China tension. It's just so difficult. I can't imagine in the past, there's a lot of Chinese people come to here, the American people come to go there. There's a lot of exchange, understanding, all the sharing, but those stuff now all gone by, I don't understand this, by those politics. Everything gets to be politics. Even COVID, COVID is really a medical issue. It's a human health. It become a political issue. Everything become politics. Of course, climate change, even more politics. So there's a lot of stuff related to our essential life, health, well-being. It become politics. That's right now. I'm still here. I sent you. You can hear me, right? I sent you the chat. I said I still owe that sector because I'm still locked in here. So I don't know when that will happen. But next year I'm gonna go to Europe. Probably if I saw some artists there, I might even bring that. They go web, all the stuff. I don't know how easy when people if I go there, bring something, it will be easy. How easy for people internationally go online, doing, that'll be maybe a limitation. Go more international side. Only if the people as a messenger, probably, maybe that I don't know. You already did a lot of international peace. I was amazed how you get that done. Maybe from the conference, like you say.
From meeting people from, going to places where people from all over the world have come together.
Yeah,
Right,
maybe,
COVID has made it very difficult.
I
But
didn't
Chin, I would
forget
have
about
just,
that part.
I would just,
I put it in the chat. I thought you already saw that my message. I come late. I don't want to say something that people already know or something. Yeah, I saw a lot of people. I said, Colleen, I met in Summit. Quite a few people I met in the Summit. So it's nice to reconnect with people in this meeting again.
For those of you who don't know, they're talking about the Visionaries Conference in Sacramento that we were part of, and Brecia and Chin Chin and Felicia and I and Jo Marie and Aldonia and Heather were.
Yeah, that was a great conference. I met
we all
Brecia
spoke.
there. I see the real power of a real art. That's really powerful if you just go on a site, physically interact with that. That's why I was attracted to that. I even learned a little bit of trick how to do it, but I never get to go there, go to do it. So yeah, I is still in my mind.
So everybody, mark your calendars. September 5th is our picnic online. We want you to come, and we want to hear from you, and we want to spread joy and love and ideas. So please join us. It's going to be an important Sunday afternoon of connecting and through compassion. So I hope you all join us, and I'll be sending out the links on that.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Thank you. It was so wonderful.